I'd like to introduce Craig Jacobson from Point Source Power.
Thank you, Victor. I said I'm Craig Jacobson from Point Source Power. I might be a little loud, so I'm going to have to adjust the mic. The innovation I'm talking about today is a fuel cell technology. So I had a fantastic introduction to fuel cells. They've been around for 50 years, great technical success. They've gone into outer space. Here we are in NASA. But they've been a market failure, and that's just the reality of fuel cells. About 20 years ago, I started research in fuel cells when I was at University of California, Berkeley. And then several years later, while at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, me and some colleagues made what we consider to be real breakthroughs in fuel cell technology. And as we started to take this technology forward and say we're going to bring this out into the world, we asked ourselves, what do we want to do with it? And the answer was we wanted to make a difference, right? As Victor alluded to, most of the people in this room, I assume all of you, want to make a dent in the universe, and so did we. So we said, what market can we go after with this technology? What can we do with this that would be really neat? Here's the clicker. Okay, and there we go. Okay, so we're going after the opportunity, which is people don't have electricity. Fuel cells generate electricity, so let's go after people who do not have electricity. There's a lot of them in the world, and there's going to still be a lot in 20, 30, 40 years. So we said, let's do that. What do they need electricity for? Again, the primary use is cell phones. The cell phone is an absolutely transformative technology. If you're in East Africa, you have about a 20% electrification rate, but you've got 70 to 80% cell phone penetration. Okay, that's an enormous number. And so they have electric needs, with primarily the cell phone, but also lighting, and it's a relatively large market. You're looking at $60 billion for both cell phone and lighting. It's a great opportunity to go after. So what we did is we took our technology breakthrough, and I'll show you that now. This is one of our fuel cells. We call them metal-supported solid oxide fuel cells. You need a really long name. And this little thing that's about the size of a nickel is one of our fuel cells. And for this to operate, you need three things. You need oxygen, which is in the air all around us. You need heat, and you need fuel. And what I brought today was a butane torch. And this supplies both the heat and the fuel for the fuel cell. And anybody who's been in fuel cell technologies will say this is absolutely crazy. As I heat this up, eventually it'll turn on. Once it gets to about 700 degrees Celsius, okay, that's enough to activate the fuel cell. And again, I can kind of turn this on and off and on and off. And again, it cools right down. And I can do this over and over again. So it's a really neat technology. Now, as we're going into the developing world for this market, of course, people don't have creme brulee torches. So that's a little bit of a problem. So we can supply them with a torch, which maybe not the best thing in the world. But let me talk a little more about the technology. So again, it's a low-cost technology. If you're in ceramics processing, this is a solid oxide fuel cell. Ceramics are expensive. We said, I'm a ceramics person. And our solution to the low cost, or making this technology low cost, is basically get rid of the ceramics. Put stainless steel. It's rugged, cheap. You can weld this kind of stuff. It's absolutely amazing. If you don't know fuel cells, all I want you to remember is that when you do all this, you can get a simple system. And simple equals low cost. Okay, in the world of fuel cells or many other technologies, as you go down a path of increasing complexity, that means increasing cost. And these systems often do not scale up, or as you scale them up, they become very expensive. So we said, okay, let's make it as simple as we can and as cheap as we can. So that we then kind of took that idea and said, okay, what is our challenge? What are we trying to do? And we're trying to make something simple and reliable for people like this. Okay, this is a family that we met out in Africa, again, in Kenya specifically. But for them to have power, we need something that's culturally relevant. It needs to be intuitive to use. There is no help desk. They got to be able to take this out of the box and use it today. And of course, the last part is this financially accessible. There are technologies that get electricity out off the grid, but they're very expensive technologies. And when I say financially accessible, I mean cash in their pocket today, which could just be a few dollars, could be several dollars at a time. So again, it has to be cheap enough to get into their homes. And as we did that, we said, what will this technology look like? Originally, we made something that looked kind of like a coffee mug or this is somebody's water bottle. we took a little container like this, and we're going to put our fuel cell in it and put that in their home as kind of a standalone unit. And as we did that, we realized, well, that's going to be a little too expensive. That could be like $15. And maybe for you, that's not expensive, but for someone in Africa, that's extremely expensive. So we said, okay, what do they have today that we need? They do something every day that supplies the inputs for this fuel cell. They cook. Okay? And in their cook stove, they have the heat, they have the fuel, and of course, there's the air all around us. And so if we can piggyback on this existing old technology, then we can save a lot of money. And we can get into their homes and into their daily ritual, into their daily lifestyle, and not make them go through any kind of major change. And so this was the idea that we moved forward with. And again, this is kind of our aha moment that people encounter when they're inventing and creating stuff. And out of that came our solution, which is this $5 fuel cell charger, or excuse me, battery charger or cell phone charger. Again, it fits into the daily rituals. It can save them money and time. Again, when you give people more time, they tend to go out and do more productive things. Okay, so they make more money on their own. So you want to give them both. And the last point is probably one of the most important. If you give them electricity, they can charge their phones. They're going to use their phones more. And that means somebody else in the market's going to make money. And they're going to pull your technology into the market. Extremely important piece of the puzzle. And if you ignore that piece, your chances of success are much reduced in these markets. Okay, so we take this concept, we kind of marry a cook stove with this, and what we do is we can provide power or an outlet for people's homes. The other thing that's really fascinating about this technology is, say, who are the people that are cooking? It's women. So if we put the power into and attach it to that cook stove, they're going to have some control over that power. Okay? And so that kind of shifts that power dynamic in the home where the male typically dominates the expenses or the control of the expenses and often the phone. So now we have a woman who can generate electricity. She has some choice as to how she wants to use that electricity. And again, it's a very empowering idea that we'd like to bring into this market. Okay, so we can create modern energy, which is electricity for cell phones and all kinds of crazy things. We also want to marry this with efficient cook stoves. And part of the reason is we want to drive really efficiency and clean technology into the marketplace. And when we first looked at this, we looked at marrying it with new clean cook stove technologies, but we decided to go with an existing technology, which is this Kenyan Jiko ceramic stove. And again, they're all over East Africa. It's a wonderful stove technology. Local artisans make it. And again, you get much reduced emissions using this technology. And we believe that this technology that we have, when you marry it to that efficient cook stove, you'll begin to really drive or accelerate the adoption of it and use. Okay? The other thing that people may not think about is often in these homes, they'll have 2 or 3 stoves. They may have a 3-stone fire. They may have a Jiko stove. They have another stove. And again, if you can get them to kind of use one stove preferentially because they get electricity out of it, again, you get them to adopt and use clean cook stove technology. Okay. So, I mean, how does it work? How can you take a box and put it in a stove and get electricity? Well, inside the box is carbon or some kind of carbon fuel, and internally you're generating a fuel with that. And again, the stove itself, the fire, actually supplies the heat. And again, this is something that you can't do with other fuel cell technologies. We're very unique. You can actually throw this in a fire. So it's really enabled by what we created or invented while we were at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. Okay. So what are the challenges? Fires are really nasty environments. It's extremely corrosive, extreme temperatures. You can have temperatures over 1,000 degrees C in one part of the fire and down to 200 degrees in another part of the fire. Extremely corrosive environment. Now, those first 4 items up there, the contaminants, the fire, all that, all those have technical solutions. It's the last one that's the real killer. You can solve most things with some kind of expensive technical solution, but if you can't meet the cost, and in particular for this market, the cost is the real driver, and you won't have a product. Okay? And so that was the one that took a lot of time and energy for us to develop. This is our research facility in Alameda, California. So again, we spun the company out. We do a lot of work there. this is kind of the transition. This is actually one of our units in a stove. You cover it with charcoal. You put your pot on. We boil water all the time in our lab, and you charge your phone or you turn on a light. If you look at that upper picture, which is our test facilities, if you could just imagine peering over the edge of that and looking on the floor, what you'd find is a lot of blood and sweat. Okay, this takes a lot of work. We have a fantastic team of researchers, engineers, technicians who have been developing this over the last year and a half, and they've done a terrific job. Okay, it's not enough to have a great idea and put the technology together. You've also got to really talk to people. Again, this is a consumer product. You're going to need to listen to the consumers and do what they say. And so we spent a lot of time in Kenya, both doing technical tests. You go in there, you measure stove temperatures. You got to figure out what they're cooking on, what kind of fuels, how long they have their stoves on every day, what they want to use electricity for. And so that takes a lot of listening, right? You got to use your ears and really be willing to talk and listen to people in these markets. It's really amazing if you take this technology into one of these homes, you put it in the fire, and you turn on a light, or you get somebody's cell phone to start charging. It's really magic. I mean, to see their eyes light up. I mean, it is magic when you put this into a stove and get electricity out, and people are just in awe and wonder of what you can do and what they will be able to do when they get this in their home. Okay, so our first product, we've got it to the prototype stage. This is our GecoCharge. Again, this is the actual fuel cell. This goes in the stove. You put this right into the coals. This actually has a battery on board and the electronics, and you can charge your phone or turn on lights. So it's a very nice unit. We're looking to target this for like a $5 or $6 retail price. So that you can imagine if that's the retail price, what is the bill of materials for this? It's got to be extremely low, and we think we can hit it. So again, we're looking to release this next fall in Kenya as we move forward with our finalizing the design. We have a group of designers that we're working with and then going into production. Okay, it's great if you have cool technology and you got a nice product idea. That's not enough. You need a business model. And our business model actually starts with our fuel cells, and I brought some. So they come in any shape and size that you want. They look like steel because, well, they're almost 95% steel. And the feature that I want you to notice is they're really thin. They're really rugged and thin. So we can make these in America. I can make these in India. I can make these wherever I want, ship them around the world. Okay? Now, where do I ship them? I ship them into Kenya, where they do the assembly. We can assemble these units in country. So again, we're generating jobs in country. We don't need to use expensive California labor or even expensive Florida labor. From there, we push this through or goes through existing mobile phone channels. You know, we don't need to create new sales channels. Our customers get their phones and their products today. We can use those channels. An important part of what we've done is kind of use the fact that the fire is very corrosive and your units will not last forever as a real strong point. So these units only last a few months, but that's actually a good thing in these markets. You don't want long life products. Now, why would you want that? It's because this lady at this store wants to sell more stuff. Okay, and if you don't have a repeat sales model, she's not going to push your product. She's going to be selling, when they sell batteries, they will sell a cheap AA battery that lasts for maybe a few hours or a day rather than an expensive one. One, because people can afford the cheap one, but two, is they get a few shillings off each of those batteries. And so they really want to push those cheaper repeat sales. And so you need some kind of sales model that uses that. Going finally to the user, of course, they're going to benefit. They're going to save money. It'll cut their electricity or their lighting bill in half, their cell phone charging bill in half. They'll be able to save time, and so they can use that time for other productive means. And so it's a very reasonable model. But again, even having a decent business model is enough. You go into these markets, you're going to need partners. And for this one, again, I'd say the big players out there are the telecoms, whether it's the carriers or the handset manufacturers. They're all hitting limits as they go out into these rural communities. They want to sell more airtime, and they would like to reach all the people in the country. And to do that, they need electricity. So again, we've got a lot of good partners out there that we can work with. Of course, governments, they want to push jobs or create jobs, and so again, they're going to be very helpful. Other people that are out there that might be helpful to us are like schools, clinics. Again, they could use technology similar to this, but maybe they're not the biggest market in the world. But again, they're a great place to start. And of course, finally, there's other NGOs and agencies in health and environment that could benefit from this and could be very useful to us. Okay, so I'm going to kind of take a step back and recap. So we're developed a technology over a multi-year period at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab. From there, we actually went out and did some business competitions to make sure that the idea made sense. We won some. We then actually spun the company out and then spent a year developing it more. It was actually done in my garage. So this is a real garage venture. We spent a year there, and then we actually went to India and Africa to test the idea. It's a great thing if we thought it was a good idea. It's great if some guys on a business plan competition think it's a great idea, but what really matters is people in India and Africa who'd use it. And they said, yeah, this is a great idea, we'd like it. And we used that story to raise a Series A from Coastal Ventures. And then from there, we spent the last year and a half developing the processing, the technology, doing a lot of testing here and in Kenya. And as we move forward into 2012, we're going to be doing the field testing, or completing the field testing, the pilot production, and getting into sales. Who are some of the people behind this? The board of directors is myself. I'm the technical person. I'm the CEO of the company. I also like people, so I'm willing to go talk to people in their homes to get a good sense of what they want. Other people, again, we got around from Coastal Ventures, and we have Pierre Lamond on our board. He's a legend in Silicon Valley. So he brings operation experience, company building, deal making, Rolodex, whatever you want. Recently, we added Henri Moissac from Facebook. So again, he's the director of mobile, so he has all the keys into the mobile world. He also has that consumer-facing attitude, which is a real benefit for us. And finally, for our in-country experience, we've used Joseph Nyana, native of Kenyan, and he just really knows these markets and these people, so he's been very beneficial for us for the last few years. Okay, so what's next? Again, we're finishing this development. We're going to field tests, and beyond that, we're going to start a pilot production plant, again, set up assembly in Kenya and go into sales in this fall. So this is really a story of developing a technology, moving it into prototype, and then into product phase. The transition from prototype to product is always a tricky one, so I don't want people to think that this is a done deal. Again, there's going to be iterations, and in particular, for this type of mass consumer technology, you need reliability that's 99.99%, and so we're going to be pushing hard to make sure it's a real reliable, low-cost product for this market. Okay. So why am I here and what am I looking for? So again, we're going to field trials. So again, assistant with field testing, especially as we go to some of the large ones. You're looking at 500 or 1,000 units out there. There's manpower and experience in these markets that would be very, very beneficial for us. Assistance in measuring the impact of this innovation. We're a company, a for-profit company. That's probably not something that we would do. But again, because there are, I would say, benefits that are useful to measure. There's people in the world that like to do that. Let's find a way to partner with them and work with them. And collaborations. Again, there's great lighting products that are out there, but there's so many. It'd be nice to collaborate and match one up to our system. And of course, stove manufacturers as well. And the other thing I'd look for is other applications. Many people in here have worked in Africa or India or Indonesia, wherever. What other application do you have? What would you do with a few watts of power that you could generate from biomass? I'll steal your ideas. I'll put them in our company, and we'll see if we can get them out there. Okay? The last point is we're looking to raise about $2 million for this pilot production and in-country assembly. That could be part of it just for the American part and part for the Kenyan part. My preference is not just cash. I'm really looking for other resources that come with that money. Money is just one resource, but really that experience of in-country, really deployment of some kind of product. That's what we'd like to add on with that money. So we want smart money in our company. Okay. So again, that's kind of this whirlwind tour of this, taking this technology, crafting it into something that we think would do the world a lot of good. And I hope that with some of your help, we can move this forward and we can make a lot of difference in this part of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Craig. Hi, everybody. I'm Will Schmidt from USAID, a member of the launch team. I'd like to invite your questions for Craig. We're going to be a little bit more time constrained than usual, and I'd like to give you just a couple reminders before we jump in. For council members, you're going to have to push to talk right in front of you on the mic stand. And just to reiterate Todd's kind of directive, please ask those questions that you think will help cover broad concerns of everybody that'll help us kind of move through the rotation, impact rotations faster. So with that, I'd like to invite your questions, please. Mikkel.
Good morning, and thank you for a very interesting presentation. A couple of things, and this might sound skeptical, but those people in the room who know me knows that I mean well. Excellent. So $5 price point. You were in, I saw your dots on the map. You were predominantly in Nyanza province. I would suggest that's an investment and not a fast-moving consumer goods. Do you have more than anecdotal evidence to suggest that this is an FMCG product? That would be my first question. Second,
FMCG?
fast-moving consumer goods.
Thank you.
Yeah. Second, I'm not familiar with behavior around Cookstove in Nyanza, but in the neighboring province, Western province, we've done a lot of research around how much time is used for boiling, how much time is used for cooking, what type of fuel, what type of cookstove. And there you have a little less than 60% of the population that boil water, whereas most are close to 100 are cooking food on cookstoves. So how does this actually work in practicality? Do you put this in the water that you're boiling? Do you put this in the ugali that you're cooking? Or do you put it into an empty pot that is burning?
Right, so I'll answer your second question first.
The flag that I'm raising is the cost of firewood.
Right. So there's the cost of firewood and there's the cost of charcoal if they're using charcoal in the ceramic Chicos. That doesn't change. It doesn't change their cost. This unit actually goes into the coals. It goes into the fire itself. It doesn't have anything to do with the water that they're boiling or whatever they're cooking. Cooking is important, and the reason it's important is when they're cooking something like Gideri, it's a multiple fuel load event, and so they cook over a very long time. And we actually like that dish. Gideri is a corn and beans dish, or beans and maize dish, and it takes a long time to cook. Especially with very old corn, you have to cook for several hours. Other dishes, if you're heating tea, this probably wouldn't work very good. So again, there's some cooking events that are very short and low temperature that this would not work. We would need a fire. And what we've geared it for is it could be boiling water, or again, if you're doing something like Gideri that's very long, then it's very appropriate for. Okay, so this actually goes into the fire itself. Okay, so I want to clarify that. With regard to the fast-moving consumer good, I don't know if it'll be a fast-moving consumer good. Again, if you look at the price for a charger, and I'm not talking about a charger, I'm talking about the charger that plugs into a wall socket, something like that. That's about 350 shillings, $350 with the conversion the way it is now. So they're accessories that are priced just under that for the mobile phone. Beyond that, it is just conversations with people, and so it is just hearsay. We will only know if this is going to be a fast-moving consumer good or not when people actually start paying for it. And until that point, it's all guesswork, it's all hearsay. Okay.
Diana.
Hi.
Hi.
So I had two questions. One that sort of, I guess, follows on from Mikkel. One is, how dependent are you on these particular Jyco stoves? Like, can you, because would you want to tie your business model to that? And the second question was, what kind of indications of partnership are you getting from the cell phone companies? Because I've recently heard about other startups that are doing things like Ubiquitous Energy. They're looking at packaging their product, which is a sort of paper-based solar panel with cell phones. I don't know that they've actually done that or not, but, or gotten that agreement. But I'm wondering, have you thought through, or have you had discussions with cell phone companies about maybe packaging with the cell phones, or what kind of partnerships are you setting up with them?
Right. So your first question, just go back to that.
Sorry, how dependent are you on the particular?
So the Deco stove. So the reason we chose, so there are so many different types of stoves that people use. Even if you go into their homes, they may have a 3-stone fire and other stoves. We chose this ceramic Deco because it gives this nice, uniform, even heat. It works very well with our unit. And it's a common platform. So 35 to 40% of the households in Kenya actually have one. They may not use it every day, but they have one in their home. And again, it's that use scenario. So in terms of platforms, that's a common platform, and in Eastern Africa, that stove is probably the one to go after. We can use other stoves and other designs, but again, for a market entry, you want one that's a market that's sufficiently large, and that's why we chose that. With regard to the second point, cell phone carriers, handset manufacturers, yes, we've talked to them. Most of these companies aren't going to move until you've proven your product. And in the case of solar, they've been burned a number of times. They haven't gotten any sales. I mean, those things haven't worked very well. And again, their names on the line, like you've talked to Nokia, they're not going to brand something or co-brand something with you until they know that it works rock solid. So our approach is we're going into the market first ourselves. There's distribution channels that we can access without asking them about it. And once you get known, assuming that you get to that point, then you go talk to them. Yeah.
Daniel, please.
Okay, great presentation. Just a question about, you highlighted that the move from prototype to production is going to be really a key challenge, which I totally agree with. Can you tell us a little bit about your supply chain relationships? I mean, one thing that when I think about solid oxide fuel cells, I think about the consistency of quality of the powders that you're getting to use, and some SOFC companies bringing it in-house because they're concerned about that. The amount of buy-in and commitment you have from your supply chain, it looks like the volumes are quite small in terms of the actual material you're using. So that's question number one. And if you want to, talk about the failure mechanisms of why it's only lasting a couple of months. It sounds like it's the contaminants in the fire, but is it also the expansion and contraction of the materials as they cool up? And when I think of SOFC, I think you turn them on and just keep them on, as opposed to constantly cycling them up and down in temperature.
Right, so I'll answer your second question first, and the question is thermal expansion, this corrosion. So the thermal expansion is well matched to the materials, and again, we can turn these on and off, up and down in a matter of seconds. They're not going to fail, and so we're very confident with that. And that has a lot to do with the stainless steel and just getting rid of the ceramic. So the volume of ceramic, as you said before, is very, very small. The electrolyte thickness is only 10 microns. So getting to your first question, the supply chain, we don't need a special supply chain or unusually high volumes of that high purity, expensive material because the amounts that we use are so small. The other material is the stainless steel. It actually comes out of the automobile industry, and you can only buy that in ton quantities as it is. It's hard for us to get something that's only a half-ton order. So that's very available, and again, there's an existing supply chain that feeds into a huge industry, which is the automobile industry. Okay.
So with that, I'm afraid we're going to have to move to our next presentation. Thank you very much for your questions. Thank you, Craig.